Welcome, everybody. Thanks for turning on the mic. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman work session for May the 23rd. We're going to call the roll. Vice Mayor,
Here.
are you here?
Here. Well, I
That's good to know.
had to turn it on.
Alderman Blanton,
Here.
Alderman Hanson,
Here.
Alderman Peterson,
Here.
Alderman Berger,
Present.
Alderman Brown,
Present.
Alderman Potts is going to be late, Alderman Baggett,
Present.
and the mayor's here. So everybody's here, except Alderman Potts, and he'll be here shortly, I'm sure. We have two citizen comments, and he told me before he handed these pieces of paper, this is date night for him. So you're going to pay heavily for it. Tom Bell and Laurie Hennon Bell, you got a couple of minutes each. Ladies first.
Thomas Bell, 177 Lancaster Drive. No, I don't need to sit. This is going to be quick.
You have the mic on?
Gotta have the microphone.
You need to hear me? Okay. It's easy to sling arrows. It's easy to engage in the process. But I think it's equally important to point out what you're doing on the Middle Eight. And last night, they had a very informative meeting, Mr. Mayor. And on Sunday, I saw Mr. Baggett. He's like a brother to me now. Yeah, it was a great presentation for those who needed additional information. And again, the two wards impacted are setting up meetings. But I think it's important to also say what a great job that everyone is doing here to bring it to the fore to answer questions. So I thought it's easy to sling arrows, but it's more important that we point out what you're doing right and doing well. So that's what I wanted to say. But as the New York mayoral candidate once said, the rent's too damn high, and that was his platform. The Middle Eight's too damn high. And that's all I'll say.
What are you gonna do with
But
that?
thank you for all you're doing. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I live in an expensive place.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lori Hendon Bell. I also live on Lancaster Drive. That's a surprise. And I also want to commend everyone here working with us as their constituents, and certainly that the city's so open to hear what folks have to say. And the Middle Eight project is important for all of us. And I have really did a deep dive on the Envision Franklin document. I've been looking at ordinances. I've been looking at a lot of renderings, and I'm going to concur with Tom. I just think the one building that is 6 stories is just very, very high for being so close to the Franklin community downtown, and to be 2 feet 6 inches higher than the non-conforming Jamison Station. I think that really needs to be looked at closely. Certainly, traffic can be handled. We all can have some frustrations around that. I have great confidence in the stormwater and how they're looking at mitigating that, because we do live downstream, and I know that that's certainly can affect a lot of different areas within Franklin. So I do appreciate that you give us this opportunity to talk, and that the developers and the owners of the property have opened up and given us another chance to listen to how they're envisioning this. But again, if you haven't seen it, take a look at the Jamison Station. Look at another 2 feet 6 inches. Think about a lot of that hardscape that is going to be visible from the street, not only from Liberty Pike, but also Old Liberty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. First item on the agenda after this is special event permit for Franklin on the 4th by the Lions Club in downtown Franklin, July the 4th. Any questions? We will go to a special event permit for Franklin Classic sponsored by Mercy Community Healthcare in downtown Franklin on September the 4th, 2023. Everybody good? Okay. Thanks for coming. And number 3 is Resolution 2023-31, a resolution approving the city administrator as the city representative for the largest municipally owned utility, the Coordinating Committee for the Williamson County Growth Plan and Franklin Urban Growth Boundary. And Eric has been serving in that role on the initial investigative committee, and I certainly would be supportive of him continuing that as the representative for the largest municipality utility. So unless there's questions, and that group is going to officially convene in June. And then it has a 6-month timeline to determine what those boundaries are for the 6 cities in Williamson County. And it looks like, at least the early phases, that everybody's in agreement now. So, but things can change. Any questions? So, number 4 is Resolution 2023-45, resolution to ratify Tennessee Private Acts, Chapter 16 of the Tennessee General Assembly, modifying the City of Franklin charter relative to allowing the vice mayor or alderman serving as mayor pro tem when serving as mayor to vote.
So you may remember you sent this in as a requested change to our city charter. The way that works is we submit it, the General Assembly acts, the governor signs it, and then it comes back to you for final approval. So that's what we're doing here. This, as the mayor described in the title, essentially provides for the acting mayor, whether it's in the role of vice mayor or mayor pro tem that is selected if the vice mayor is not here, to retain their ability to vote as whatever position they're in, be it ward alderman or at-large alderman, that they could still retain their vote in the process. So we do have this on for both meetings for you to vote tonight, but it follows through on what you requested the General Assembly to approve.
I see silence, so we'll go to item 5, which is Resolution 2023-01, to a resolution to approve a pilot payment in lieu of taxes program for In-N-Out Burger.
I'll invite our partners here from Williamson Inc. to come up to the table as well. Nathan Zipper's with us and Kel McDowell. So we wanted to review for you the specifics that are related to providing support to the In-N-Out headquarters project. It's a regional office, I should say, and it will support operations and expansion of the In-N-Out Burger company as it moves into providing services and working in the eastern half of the United States. So this was a highly competitive opportunity to bring this corporate presence to our community. We competed with states and cities across the whole eastern half of the United States, and we're pleased when they selected the city of Franklin. And an element of that is support provided by the state, county, and local city government. And so you see this laid out, and the specifics of the local support is about $1.9 million of total property tax abatement over a 10-year period. Of that amount, the city of Franklin's is $287,700, and that is spread out over a 10-year period. It is a not-to-exceed amount. So they may invest even more, and in fact, I think the numbers are higher than when we originally ran this calculation. But once they hit $287,700, the abatement ends. So it's a not-to-exceed. It is for a period of up to 10 years. So when you hit that amount or you hit that time frame, the abatement ends. And again, ours is a much smaller amount compared to the county, but that's true in terms of our property tax rate. When we work on this, we tend to mirror what the county does in their property tax abatement. So in this case, it really only applies 40.5% of the property tax to be eligible for abatement. They protect the public education side of their property tax calculation. Our roughly equal equivalent is the public safety component. So we have always kind of held to, we'll do what the county does. And so this is consistent with that. We have Kel and Nathan here to talk through the specifics, but it is a significant investment. It's $125.5 million, I think 277 jobs. And so it's a real positive for our community, and we are thrilled to have them coming. They can talk a little more about time frame and other details, and glad to answer any other questions you have. So Nathan,
Yeah,
take it
sure.
away.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to read you the memo that we wrote. That's the extent of the details that we have right now. We also have Jim Murphy here tonight from Bradley. Jim represents the company in their process working through the incentives both with the county and the state and the city. But needless to say, this is a great project. We're thrilled so far with what it's like to work with the In-N-Out team. We have found them to be already great community partners. They've already invested in Williamson Inc., and they haven't even closed on the land. So you can already tell that they're going to be great community partners. And yeah, we're excited and we're grateful for the city's support.
And the interesting part of this project is both an office building around 100,000 square feet, but is also they're going to have one of their restaurants right on campus with it. So it'll probably be one of the first, if not the first, in the eastern half of the United States, located right here in Franklin. So they'll have both their retail operation and their office building right there. I believe they'll start the restaurant in '24 with opening in '25, and start the office building in '25 with opening in '26.
That's great.
Roughly anticipated. So we always work with folks coming in about what is their time frame, when do they want to have it done, and we work back from there in terms of process and what needs to get in and get done to achieve their vision. And so we're doing the exact same thing with In-N-Out that we do with other customers we work with in terms of what are their goals, what is the time frame they want to achieve, and how do we work through the process to hit those goals.
It's also probably worth mentioning, so that 277 jobs number, right now, it's interesting, the In-N-Out core team is about 6 individuals. And when they've talked about creating these jobs, usually when we have projects, it's 50 to 60% of the new jobs are generated here. I anticipate, based on our experience with them, that that's going to be higher than that. They're still going to maintain their presence in California. But from what we gather, the overwhelming majority of those 277 jobs are going to be Williamson County, Franklin residents, Middle Tennesseans.
Great news. Ready to order a burger. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
How is this different from a TIF district?
Well, a TIF district deals with the specific land area and freezes the valuation while the investments happen. And it tends to be a longer term, and it typically deals with also infrastructure that we need to provide. In this case, it is a defined abatement for a defined period of time. So you may remember the Nissan TIF, which was much larger, was a dollar amount, and it took a certain period of time to pay that off. In this case, it is a defined period of time and a dollar amount not to exceed. So it's a little more defined, and it's not the magnitude of what we did in TIF. The other thing I would note with TIF is that TIF was the city alone. The county did not participate in the TIF. In this case, the city and county are together doing a property tax abatement. And those valuations will continue to rise and benefit schools and benefit our public safety function. When you have a TIF, you freeze that, and so you don't get the benefit of increased valuation and increased investment in that geographical area. So it really is better for the community as a whole if you can do it. But there's also can be more capacity in a TIF, but I don't think that was deemed necessary for what this project needed.
Anybody else? Alderman Baggett?
What's the, I didn't see it in the resolution, but is there clawbacks, like if they don't do this? I mean, is there, what guarantees do we have that they don't get an offer for $100 million on the property more, and then they sell it, and they don't? So what are the protections we have? I don't know. I'm not as well versed in this, but what protections do we have?
And I think you could, so most of the
citizens.
clawbacks I'm familiar with are when, like around the state, although the incentive they're giving.
Yeah, we typically have included clawback language, so, yeah, go ahead.
I can answer that.
Jim Murphy on behalf of In-N-Out. Yes, we've got a clawback in here that basically if after 2023, when we meet which is 2030, excuse me, when we're supposed to meet the 277, if we don't have 80% of those jobs, then that results in a pro rata reduction in the abatement. And if we don't, so that going forward, the abatement lowers down depending on how many jobs we meet. So if we don't do anything, we don't, the abatement. I mean, obviously, if we don't do anything, we won't.
Property tax.
Yeah, well, there won't be any property tax anyway. So that's the other part. I mean, we're going to, as Nathan said, they're very actively involved in getting these projects going. So I think the time frame that Eric mentioned is the time frame they're looking for to have these things open. They're very excited about having a new store in Franklin. They're also very excited about having a Eastern headquarters here. And just to be clear, the abatement is only on the headquarters. The restaurant
That's right.
is not being abated.
That's right.
It's going to be fully taxable.
I would just only make this comment is there was a overwhelming public, positive outcry for this relocation. I'd say though it's important that generally though I would not be in support of this kind of. We're a very popular place to be, but the public was clear. In my opinion, I've saw nothing but rave reviews, and the number is relatively low. But I don't, this seems a little bit smaller than what we would normally do something like this for. But maybe not. But it's not a Nissan North America, I guess is what I'm saying. But because the public was, and it's relatively nominal to our budget. But I think philosophically, we've got a very popular city, and people want to move here, and headquarters want to move here. But the public was clear in their response to how how much they want in and out here, and obviously the community impact will be great. But I just wanted to make it clear that generally this is not something that, unless for the larger projects, this is really something I think we don't have to do. But again, we're happy to have them in Franklin.
Well, to
So,
maybe
thank
put
you.
it in a little bit of context related to that, I've been here about 15 years, and I think we have 4 of these agreements.
Oh, I agree. It's very
Total.
infrequent.
So
Very
it-
infrequent.
We are very selective when we select to do it, choose to do it, and it is for projects that really have a significant impact, both in terms of the investment and the type of company you're bringing in, and we're really worked through that. And like I said, guard diligently, especially the public school funding component, because that is so important. And part of the things we always say to economic development prospects is your tax benefit is the low taxes you pay all the time, meaning the lowest property tax rate for a city of 50,000 or greater in the state of Tennessee is what Franklin has. And Williamson County is very competitive compared to other counties across the state and the folks we compete against nationally. So that is a value, and we always stress that that's an important part of this, and that's what folks are buying into.
Thank you for saying that. The frequency is rare.
Yeah.
And I think that the public needs to know that this is not a frequent thing. But again, I agree. But I just want to make it clear that this is generally. I'm glad we're taking a hard look at these when they come in, because we welcome in and out to the community, and happy to have them.
I've been involved with most of the discussions when we've offered pilots. And pilot is a tool that we can use. Many times, our property tax is so low, it's really not, I mean, we would offer other enticements other than payment in lieu of taxes. So I wouldn't want to discourage total non-use of pilots. So I think it's still an opportunity. So other people? Alderman Peterson, and then I'll get Alderman Berger.
I just wanted to say that we have been very fortunate in many respects, and one of them was in the things that have come in because we have done this have been really good, really good. And we just don't do it every time you turn around. This is what you're saying. It's not done very often, but it has been that the things that have come here have been desired by many other places.
Difference makers.
And I've got to sing the kudos to the chamber, and particularly this team, Kel and Nathan, the whole team that I get to work with and Eric gets to work with. They do a great job. When they're meeting with businesses are smiling because they're good at what they're doing.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think you wanted to go first, I'll go last.
If we know how it affects the county's school funding, what does it do to the Franklin Special School District? How are they just sales tax?
It's not in their district, so it's
Okay.
not impacted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
But if it were, they would be part of that discussion as well, because they're part of the property tax.
Thank you for making that.
Everybody good?
Well, I was just going to say, my had a lot of constituents ask me about this kind of thing because, well, Nissan was a huge deal, and the state worked on that for a long time, and then that was done in '05. And then we had Ramsey and Lee Company and I don't know who else. I've been another one. I'm not sure I recall any other ones, and then this one. A lot of my constituents talk to me and they say, how does the government do this picking of winners and non-winners? Because they bring that up, and it is a sensitive issue. And I'm not generally in favor of doing this, but you make some compelling points that we've heard here tonight about. It's not a whole lot of money, but it is some, but there are other stipulations in there that you have to meet. So I would have a tendency to support this because I'm very pro-business, and I get this from an economic standpoint. But I just need to go on record to say that I do hear my constituents, and a lot of them have asked me to bring that forward in different times because they do have concerns about sort of rolling the dice and picking the winners and non-winners kind of thing, that they see that as from that angle. But the pilot's there for a reason. And the other thing is I do have a question about, so this is the east headquarters and it's not the main headquarters, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so, yeah. And the jobs will be, where will the jobs be? At the headquarters here,
Yes,
mainly?
yes.
That 277
That
is the
277
headquarters
The headquarters?
exclusive.
All
It
right.
doesn't
Right.
include the
It doesn't
retail.
include
Does
the
not?
restaurants, including the other restaurant locations
Mm-hmm.
in other counties. This is just the headquarters.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I can say one last thing. Whenever Nissan North America announced that it was coming here, my brother who lived in California said, there are a lot of people around here in California that are not happy that this is going to Nashville. And I said, it's not going to Nashville, it's going to Franklin.
That's right.
That's right. Get your jurisdiction straight.
That's right.
Yeah, make sure
And
y'all
it was
do
very
that, too.
carefully stated that it was Franklin at the announcement in January.
Yeah.
That was duly noted.
People have a tendency to
I don't
want to
think
say
it's appropriate discussion tonight, but I think it might be interesting to sit down with Nathan and Kel and just talk about some of the processes where we've seen some of the projects come forward and how they're handled and how they're handled on the corporate side and how we handle them on our side. And
Well, the state has a tendency to do more than we do, that's for sure. But I would say that, you brought up some compelling points tonight, and that I think it is worth a discussion. I think it might be very important to do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And one of the things to realize, we don't do it alone. We work in partnership
Yeah.
with the state, with the county, with TVA, all those elements. And we know what each other's doing, and it's very coordinated. I've done this for 30 years, and it's as coordinated here as any place I've seen in terms of us speaking with one voice, talking about it. We're packaging, we're all doing our part, but when we work with the prospect, they're hearing one package, and they're seeing one kind of team working together, and that really makes a difference.
And Ann also pointed out, too, that, the ones we have worked with have been stellar. They're stellar in our community.
These are good.
Yeah.
paying jobs.
We've
Since
done
we're
a-
sales tax budget, I venture to say the one Berry Farms location of In-N-Out will probably
Yeah.
cover the sales tax.
That will help.
The sales tax will cover.
Probably.
it. I anticipate a lot of popularity.
that's a great point, Alderman Baggett.
But you better get that one open real fast.
So, but a
Well, that
lot
does
of,
open
we
first, so
understand.
we're glad of that.
and some of these things move very, very fast. I can remember Saturday when I was called about a Sunday meeting, and the individual that flew in, he was flying through from another part of the world. I don't know how he kept his eyes open, but anyway, great discussion. How about item 6? Thank
you.
you for being here, Jim.
Yes.
Is ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance to amend amend Title 8, Chapter 2, Section 219 of the Franklin Municipal Code relative to background checks for bill permit applicants.
Thank you, Mayor. We're just, yeah, sure, thanks. We're just trying to be consistent with our ordinance relative to background checks. There's 2 subsections to the background check ordinance, and one has a 10-year look-back period, and the other does not. And so we talked to Beer Board, and there was some feedback that we should probably be consistent with those and have all of our background checks cover the same length of time. So that's what we've done here, and welcome to, yeah.
Go ahead, Alderman Blanton.
What are the rules for the TABC for the opposite product?
For liquor, so that's completely governed by the
I mean, is
TABC
it
by
a
this.
similar decade
Oh,
look back, or is it
well-
more stringent?
That I'm not sure of. I'm not familiar with their background check rules.
Because we talk about consistency. I mean, I know alcohol content obviously is different in liquor versus even craft beer or things like that. But I was just curious if we're trying to be consistent.
Yeah,
didn't know.
I'm happy to look
Yeah,
into
let's
that.
find out. That is.
I don't necessarily think we need to be more stringent because I think different types of places have the elevated product versus somebody who just serves beer. So you don't want to tie their hands, but out of curiosity, I think it'd be interesting to see the comparison.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to look that up.
Thank you.
Item 7, ordinance 2023-14, an ordinance to amend Title 25 Parks, Chapter 4, Section 25403, Section 25405, and Appendix A of the City of Franklin Municipal Code to establish exemptions to the parkland impact fees, maximum dwelling units for payment in full, and comprehensive fees and penalties offsets for private and public parkland amenities. Great caption.
Some good updates from our parks team.
Absolutely. Well, good evening. I brought a couple of colleagues with me this evening. I think most of you know Kevin Lindsay, our facility superintendent, and this is Heather Subio, who's our research and planning specialist. So both of them work with the design professional team and our design professionals throughout our community on parkland impact fees, not just the ordinance itself, but also the implementation of the full program. So as the mayor read, there's a few recommendations we're bringing forth to you tonight. So I'm going to ask Heather if she would just kind of briefly go through those, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions or receive comments.
Thank you, Lisa. So nothing pertaining to financial impact, but some things that we've noticed as developers have submitted plans that we wanted to address in our ordinance that wasn't really clarified beforehand were some exemptions. So charitable organizations, state licensed beds, group homes, or temporary houses, as well as like remodeling or developing of existing structures and commercial properties. Those weren't really addressed specifically prior to this amendment, so we wanted to make sure that those were exempt from our ordinance, as well as payment up front. If they have 12 dwelling units or less, we would ask that they pay that payment up front. Chances are those 12 dwelling units will get platted at the same time. They most likely will go into a fees-only contract anyways, and as well as detached accessory dwelling units. We want those payments up front. And then currently, for offsets, we have private at a 50% reimbursement back to the owner, as well as public at a 75% reimbursement, but we don't have anything really in place for both private and public, so we would like to have them be eligible to receive 75% of that eligible reimbursement back at a 25% for private and 50% for public. And then we included a chart as well in the item, so it kind of breaks down the public versus private and then both. So those are the changes.
Anybody?
I
Go ahead,
just,
Alderman
I
Peterson.
just had one thing, not having really to do with what you're talking about, but there's a little part in there that said it's really not worth it to have a park of 5 acres or less. And I hate to think now that people, even homes are being built on such tiny lots. There really need to be some playgrounds for children, and that we've had some of that in 5 acres or less. At least the county has done that inside the city limits, so it's really something to think about.
Absolutely. And I think Kevin or Heather probably can allude to this better than I can because they work with the contracts so much, but just about every private or public development that so even if it's small, they are providing, we're kind of giving that feedback. It's really a give and take where they come in and share. And so we're seeing playgrounds go in. We make sure that open space is there. We're trying to hit all of the elements, the trail systems, and making sure that connectivity. And so they've been very good. I don't remember one that's come in that we haven't seen those things in, but they've been pretty good. They're the design professionals consider that, because it is, those things go in prior to the home being constructed. And so if it's there, absolutely. Now, we do have the capability, if there were to be something that's an opportunity, walks through the door, then we should be able to bring that back to you and ask that it's less than 5 acres, but in this specific area in the city, it makes sense that it becomes a public entity. We have the right to do that. And so, but thank you for bringing that up, because neighborhood park service, super important in this community as we grow.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I think we've discussed neighborhood parks and whatever for a long, long time. Generally, my philosophy on it has been that that's an amenity that's in the development that improves the development. So, if you're saying you're looking at those, probably those should be required. Are they? In other words,
They're not as required as much as it goes back on the development of how many units you have and how much they're going to pay for their proportionate share. What we try to do is get them to put them in up front, and they get reimbursement for that. And they're not waiting on the city to come back 5 years later to put it in a CIP project to now put in a playground or a walking trail that someone has already inhabited, and now they've got issues with us putting that in. So yes, it's definitely an improvement. It's a selling factor for the development up front, and they can get reimbursement back on that if they go through the parkland process.
well, I'm saying that we don't want the city a year or two later trying to build a 3-acre or 4-acre park someplace in a development that's already partially developed out or 50% developed out or whatever else. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with that pretty much then.
Alderman, we see a lot of times, and we've had this over the years, it's usually our larger HOAs come back to us because they've got open space or they're not utilizing the area, and it might be adjacent to another park, which you consider taking over a portion of. And so we constantly look for those opportunities. In fact, we have one near a Pinkerton Park now that there might be an opportunity. So it's important to be open to those things as they come about. But we look at those as opportunities, but thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Good job. Item 8 is City of Franklin Contract 2023-0033 with Axon Enterprise for additional Axon Fleet 2 equipment for new 2020 police patrol units.
So this provides both, Axon is our provider for both body cameras and the in-vehicle video systems, and we are building on and providing 5 more years of service to help this continue this relationship, provide this vital support to our police department team. Chief, I don't.
Well, good evening. This is a continuation and upgrades for our body cameras, our dash cameras in all of our vehicles. There's also a camera in one of our interview rooms. It includes batteries, software, tagging, the integration system, licenses, and warranty. So it's all-you-can-eat body cameras. Everybody should have one. Sure. You're first. You do.
That's such a good report. Next item.
We appreciate your consideration on this. They've been an asset to the department. I hope you feel the same way.
It's a really important support for what our team does and how we do it. It helps us really manage well the work that our team does. It's also an insurance policy, and it serves us well in that regard as well. So this has been a good system. It's not cheap, but it serves us really well, and it's really effective, and our team has, I think, really embraced it, and it's worked well for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Item 9 is procurement award to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee in the total estimated amount of $622,292.40 for the year beginning July 1st, 2023 for stop-loss insurance for group health and prescription drug programs for employees and retirees for a term of award for the Human Resources Department Purchasing Office Procurement Solicitation 2023-017, contract number 2023-0126.
Aren't you glad we shortened that title for you, man?
Yeah, I'm enjoying these. I like these dull.
So we are self-insured, but we have a stop-loss component. So if costs hit a certain point on an individual, it kicks in where we have coverage from that point. And we go out to the market from time to time to get that, and this refreshes that for us.
Item 10 is the Hill Housing Development, review of proposed housing mix price points, estimated development cost in consideration of a funding request.
So I think Vernon's coming up here, and I think Derwin may be joining us as well. We wanted to provide you an update on both the project, but also status in terms of how we believe this project would move forward and what the needs are to hit the goals we've had for the Hill project, which is a blend of both affordable and workforce priced units, and walk through what that looks like. And there'll be additional work for you or guidance for you to provide as we prepare to submit this into our development process. You're in a unique situation where you are an owner working with a developer or development team that will actually submit this into the city's own process. So we want you to give us feedback as we're moving along in this process. So I'll turn it over to Vernon and Guess.
Yes. Thank
Thanks
you,
for joining us.
Mayor and Alderman. Really excited to be here before you. And Wayne Weaver, many of you know from CHP, and Derwin Jackson from the Housing Authority, who are part of the Hill LLC and our partners on the Hill property, are here to respond to some questions that you might have. And I want to preference this presentation. There's a lot of information, and not necessarily looking to spend the remaining time we have. We've got a couple other items on the agenda, but ensure that you understand where this project is at this point in time and where we want to go with it. And we're at a point in time now that the Hill project is ready to submit a development plan. But because of the nature of this partnership, we also have to craft a development agreement. And we've started working on it, but there's still some elements that we need your guidance. And that's why we're here this evening. So I only have a few slides to share, and I've met with the Hill group and talked through this. We want to provide an overview of the proposed development and the housing mix, a summary again of affordable and workforce family income levels and attainable housing price points, the initial cost construction or development cost estimate for the Hill, bridging the gap. There's a funding request that's part of this presentation this evening that we'll review with you, and then questions and next steps. So the proposed project, this is a very rough concept that will include 21 townhomes and 12 multiplex homes for a total of 33 housing units for sale. And 10 of those would be made eligible for families who fall within the affordable, lower income family range, which is 80% or lower of the median income in the greater Nashville, Murfreesboro, Franklin area. The remaining 23 units would be deed restricted as well and available for families who fall within that workforce housing range, which I'm going to share with you what that means. And that's between 80 and 150% of that median income. But this is a rough concept. We've spent a fair amount of time with their team to ensure when they submit a development plan that this can come to reality. Still needs to be tweaked, engineered, and everything, and come back to you all. So I know the chart on the right side of this screen is small, but I did share with you the larger version of this in your packet. And for the sake of the discussion, the information contained on this sheet, and it's one we've used for many years, shows the HUD median income for the greater Nashville area. And these are 2022 figures. The 2023 are maybe even will come out this week. But nevertheless, when we look at the affordable housing price point and the family income, that price point for a house for a family of four at the high-end range is about $245,000. And I would ask that you just keep that in mind as we continue this part of the conversation. The workforce family income, that's between 80 and 150 for a family of four, using 32% of their income for principal, interest, taxes, insurance on their mortgage, equates to about $460,000. And that's an important figure. So I want to repeat that just for the sake of repeating it, is that when we look at these charts, it's very common practice, and when working with people, not to allow them to expend more than 32% of their income on principal, interest, taxes, insurance for their housing needs. So again, for a family of four, that high level of the price point is $245,000 is what they can afford. For a workforce family, it's $460,000. Which I want to draw your attention to the left side of the screen and for the Hill project. What they've been trying to do is make sure that their sales price of the units at this point in time of the development can be affordable. For the affordable housing, as you can see in those 10 units in the second line, they are trying to build those houses at $200 a square foot that they'll be able to sell for $375,000 per unit. Now, you might say, well, if a family of four can only afford a $245,000 unit, how are they going to afford it? That's where the Hill comes into play in this partnership. It's their responsibility to work with the entities that they have available and the tools to provide second mortgages and down payment assistance to people that are in the lower income bracket. And there's tools out there, and you can ask them questions and they'll definitely elaborate on that. For the workforce units, those are $425,000. And, whether they sell them to a family of two or three is up to them, but that's their goal, is to try to build this project and sell the units that will realize an income of $13,525,000. However, if you go down to the middle of the page, the construction costs that they've provided, and I've included an inflation factor here because it's not going to be built tomorrow, it's estimated at about $18.5 million today. In another year, probably go up to 19 million and 19.6 million in 3 years. So thinking about inflation. And what does that really translate to? It translates into a funding gap of $5 million to $6.1 million. Now, one of the unique aspects of this project is, as we know, is these are for sale units. Deed restricted, that they're going to stay available to families whose income are either in that low income range or in that workforce income range. Unlike perhaps the Franklin Housing Authority, that has done some wonderful things and is doing some wonderful things with their properties, those are rental units. They have tax credits, so that funding model is a little bit different. Here, there has to be some type of understanding of if we can help them build these homes at these price points, they'll make up the gap in how to move families into those houses. So, to help bridge this gap, Williamson County ARPA funds for infrastructure have assigned $1 million to the Housing Authority for this project. We have talked to them, and in our CDBG funding, we can put that towards infrastructure. And for the next several years, we could allocate $600,000. That's 1.6.
Let me add one point to this component. The Williamson County $1 million has been matched by a city $1 million on other affordable housing projects working with Franklin Housing Authority. So we both committed to $1 million. The county specifically asked that its $1 million be put towards the Hill project, but we are doing $1 million from ARPA funds as well, but they're in different but also affordable units. So just to note that you are also using ARPA funds, but on another set of affordable housing projects.
Yes, an example of that of one project is the Cherokee project presently being constructed. So getting into the real request here is that in conversations, they're here before you to seek additional funding in the way of development fees. In their pro forma that I shared with you, they had $899,000. As we looked at it closer, it's around $880,000 in all the different fees, impact fees, or permit fees, et cetera. But that would even be further reduced as we work with them on the project, because we have some sewer and water taps available from demolished properties. So what I'm getting at is that it's not actually $899,000. It's not even $880. It might be closer to $860. And we would work through that in the development agreement, and that's why I've asked to not try to focus in too much on the details here. It's more on the concept that we're asking for consideration of the additional funds. We also know that a portion of the Hill property is the water management departments, and we have to reimburse the enterprise fund in the tune of $479,700. They're asking that we do that for them internally in the city funds. And then the remaining infrastructure cost that is out there, it's a total of 3.1 originally, but with the county funds, the CDBG funds, they're asking for another 1.5 million, 1.6 million in infrastructure costs that would be payable upon installation of the infrastructure, which would be outlined in the development agreement. If you look closely at the pro forma that the Hill provided, that's still a shortfall of, in today's dollars, of about $490,000 to inflation in a few years to 1.6 million. I would suggest, and the Hill team, Derwin and Wayne, agree that in their pro forma, they have a construction contingency of $1.2 to $1.3 million, and then an administrative fee of $1.3 and $1.4 million. And as we work through this project, it's our goal together to build it. And maybe that construction contingency isn't needed. Maybe another request needs to come back. But the point being made that at this point in time, if you agree with the 2.9 request, we can proceed with the development plan and a development agreement. So I'll turn that over to Derwin and Wayne. If I missed anything or misspoke, I tried to simplify it as best as I can. But this is the first project in which the city, with not-for-profits, we're building a number of for-sale units.
Well, the only thing, first thing I would say, the $1 million that the city has given us is going to our Shawnee project. So you make sure you know that. But other than that, this is a process, and that definitely we are excited about it. But we know we have a lot of things we've got to work through. Like all of our projects that we do with you, we can't do this without the city and the county helping us do this. And our main goal is to make them affordable. That is the bottom line. We're trying to say, hey, these price points, and Wayne can tell you, we got to bring some other tools to the table, because some people can't afford the $375, but we do have a group, the Housing Fund group, that can help us with some soft second money to lower the mortgage for families. So we feel that we can make it happen, but it's going to take all of us to do it.
I've got Alderman Baggett, then I'll take Alderman Blanton, and then Alderman Hanson.
Okay, so we'll go first then. How many acres is this? How many acres is the Hill property?
11, if I'm correct.
11 acres?
If I'm correct.
I think it's,
Am I correct?
I think it might be smaller than that.
Smaller than that.
Yeah, I can't, that's a.
Six
7 acres?
I'm right.
6 acres.
Between
Five.
5 to 11.
Okay, I'm way off.
5.88,
Way
I
off.
think.
5.88.
Now that.
Wish it was 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
5.88.
So,
Sorry.
no, that's all right. I keep thinking about this is if we get, you can't build affordable housing if you're given the land. I mean, this is what we've just gone through, or what you just presented, is apparently in Franklin, even if you have free land, you can't build affordable housing. I don't know that that's completely true, but I think I'll speak, that's kind of a broader philosophical kind of thing for us to consider, I think, as a board, is that for some reason, if we give you land and $1 million and $600,000, there's something else, there's another factor here. It's building cost. Maybe it's the number of units allowed under our zoning ordinance. I think we're looking at 5 acres and 33 units. I think we have to get creative. And I'm not saying we need to go back to the drawing board on this, but I think philosophically we've got to think about the fact of the matter is that we can give you free land and $1 million and 600,000 CBDG, CDBG funding, and we still have problems with you still have a developer would have problems building houses affordably. It's something we need to think about in our zoning ordinance and the processes as we go through. Of course, we want them to be beautiful. We want open space. We want historic buffers. We want all the things. But and this property is unique, so there's all those kind of going into this. So it's kind of a unique piece of property. But that was the first thing that stood out to me. And I would like to hear the other aldermen's comments on the actual funds. I think I will let them speak to those and may have something to say at the end. But it is a big departure from the original budget. I just see us needing a larger vision and plan for how to address. If this is what the community or what development community is looking at when they're trying, why should we expect anybody build afford? I mean, there's no chance, and we know that. But this has identified other issues for me, and I'll let another alderman speak now.
Alderman Blanton.
I appreciate that perspective. This is something we've been talking about way before there was ever even a Hill LLC group, which, by the way, Hard Bargain is still a partner in this. Okay. Derek's not here, and I'm like, what's going on?
And Habitat for Humanity as well.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. We've talked about this for a very long time, and I'm glad that we're continuing to get towards the finish line, but I know we're not quite there. I have often said that based on trips we've taken in other cities where we've seen, affordable housing, it's been probably 5 or 6 years. And it was evidence to me on that trip that another important part of the equation, if you will, is also, and I say this, I don't mean it to be lofty, but the heart of the builder. I've watched Hard Bargain build several homes. And this isn't a judgment. I'm just saying that you have to take on other partners too who are willing to have their heart in the game. God bless Larry Crane and what he's done at Hard Bargain. I also know we live in a community where land values are our biggest hurdle. Used to be. Now that hurdle's become a lot of other different things in that bucket. I understand what you're saying, Patrick, but I really feel like the longer we wait to try to get something done, the more this is going to get pushed and it's not going to come to fruition. There'll be new hurdles in place. At one point, there was a community center that was proposed to be on this that took away from the housing. So at least we stepped over that speed bump, and I was glad of that. I know that it might be harder to explain to the citizenry how we can be a partner in this and spend that money. But I also think if we all had a crystal ball, when we talk about our workforce and we talk about our people who need to be in whatever industry that serves the community, they also have to have a place to live. Walking into restaurants that have a gas can on their counter that said, please help pay for our gas. We need walkable communities. We need people to feel invested in their neighborhood. I think, I'm not saying we need to speed it up, but I can support this because I do want to see it come to fruition, because I think if it's successful and people have pride in the opportunity to remain in their hometown, whether they're utilizing the affordable product or the workforce product, if it's successful, we can get more creative and duplicate this in other places, potentially in our community. That's the long end goal for me. The other thing that I'm going to take the liberty of saying right now, I have the opportunity, if we haven't named all the streets yet, I really would love to see Brant Bousquet be honored in some way in this development. It's taken all of you guys to get here, but you talk about a pioneer that has helped our community have a discussion that wasn't popular. Brant deserves to be remembered in this. So,
Thanks. Alderman Hanson.
Can I say something just very quickly? And we've talked about that, and I will say this. I'm in this because of Brant. Brant brought this to me how many years ago it was, and said, "Hey, you guys want to come to the table to try to do this?" So he knew about this, and I'm with you on that because I'm here because he brought me into this.
Go ahead, Alderman Hanson.
A lot of thoughts about this, and I'm with Alderman Blanton. We have to do this. We have to start somewhere. I think about the salaries that we increased for just our staff alone last year, and sadly, a lot of our staff fall in the affordable housing, not even the workforce housing limits. Many jobs that are advertised out there are actually in the affordable range in this community. And there's going to be a large population of people that qualify for that. On the purchase price, so let's say we're looking at an affordable unit at $375, a family of two. What kind of product, I mean, I'm in real estate, I do a lot of mortgages. What product exists to cover $180,000 spread? And is it a silent second where there's only interest? Is it interest only? Is there no payment? Is it waived after a certain amount of time? How does this work?
So there's a product, as Derwin mentioned, through the Housing Fund that is an equity share program that provides, it's a 1% down payment for the buyer. And the Housing Fund puts in 25% of the purchase price with zero interest and zero payments. And there is an equity share proponent over time if the home is sold, where it kind of transfers to the next person and kind of goes on for eternity. That's pretty significant. Some of the numbers that we put together, they may be a little bit different. And as Vernon mentioned, we're kind of working with what we have at the table now. But interest rates, what we don't know. In 2 years or 3 years, we could have completely different numbers. The HUD MSA numbers are constantly changing. We've been waiting for the 2023 numbers to come out. The income levels go up every year on those, so we're kind of having to just go, this is what we have at the moment.
Yeah.
Right, but it could all change. There's a lot of factors in here that we're looking for other programs. There's another program through Tennessee Housing Development Agency that offers a zero interest rate mortgage, some grant funding through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati that can offer up to roughly $30,000 or so. That's a grant. for buyers, United Way funds for down payments, down payment assistance through THD as well. There's a lot of things that we can still pull together as we go through this. And we're hopeful that we find a partner to build them for less than $200 a square foot. If that happens, I mean, because from my perspective, I'd love to push the prices down even more. But we're just, as I said, trying to work with what we have in the current market.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of demand for these, and I think this is the time, and I think it's something that we have to do as a community, because we have people who need to live here, people who need to work here, and people who need to raise their kids here. And this is really, really an important next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Brown.
A couple quick questions. Vernon, just some, is the development fee line item, that $800,000 line item, are you saying that is there surplus material and or waiving of fees, or is there an actual direct payment in that line item?
It's a combination.
Okay.
And, I don't want to, I think the best way for me to explain it is that when we have a development come to the city, that we offer to provide them a development fee estimate. And our team puts together a spreadsheet, which is 3 pages long, of all the various fees from initial submittal to our, for the entitlement process, all the way through occupancy. It includes all the road impact fees, any county fees. And in the case of what we're doing here, is that within our ordinance already, we have some provisions for offsetting road impact fees, sewer and water tap fees in our municipal code. And that's provided, and even some building permit for the affordable units, but not necessarily for the workforce units. And again, I don't want to dive too deep into details. The other thing, that's another example, when we have a project that demolishes existing houses that have previously paid for sewer and water tap fees, that we bank those for affordable units. And we have enough of those for this project, both sewer and water. So that's why it's not that 800 plus thousand. It'll be less than that, and we'll work through that as we get the development agreement in place.
I was just trying to understand what was actual cost versus waived fees and that kind of thing. And then where is the source of this funding? I mean, I know we're about to approve a budget or start a budget approval process. We funded some additional things with about this much money in this last round. What is the funding source?
Well, as Vernon said, there are some ways to offset with taps that have been retired or recovered, if you will. But otherwise, the mechanism that you have in the ordinance is that then you would budget for that in future years. So this would be something we would have to anticipate at the time those fees are due in future budgets from your general fund, because we are keeping those impact fee and development fee funds that relate to utility operations, et cetera, separate, or we're keeping them whole. I'm sorry, so the general fund makes that up over time. It typically, it's not going to happen in one budget year. It takes time when they have these, but that's how it's structured.
And my only other comment is just, I do think we ought to be thinking about that additional number that's at the bottom down there. It's not going to get cheaper in the next couple of years. And so I could very well foresee us sitting here again in 2-3 years having the same discussion. And if we're going to try to get this done, we probably ought to think about what we think the real implications of this project are over the time frame, and what do we think the worst case scenario is that we need to fund. What are the sources for all of that, and be ready to address that now, because otherwise we're going to be right back here asking for a similar number, and it's going to feel more, to Alderman Baggett, to your point, it's going to feel like we really can't get it done. And so I would want to look at the entirety of what we think it's going to take to get this project done.
Go ahead, then I want to make a comment.
All right, you said we're acting as the owner on this?
Well, you're owning the land, then you're ultimately
We're partner in the
transferring
development.
it to your development partner, because there needs to be ownership for ultimately the folks who are going to be in these homes.
Most development entities would come in and ask for 45 units to start, They'd come back to us, they would talk to us, they'd talk to people, because they're looking at the same variance. I mean, they're looking at the same call, they're looking at our zoning ordinance. And I know that, by the way, full credit to staff who was given on some zoning requirements. Here, I know that has happened, and we have more units than probably our base, well, our regulations allow. 6 more units at $400,000 a unit, it's $2.4 million. You're asking us for 2.9. We don't do this every day. We're the owners of the property. This is kind of weird because we wear both hats. We approve the modifications of standards, and we may ask for some. I don't know how that works actually in this situation, but 6 units, and we're at 2.4 million that we're able to sell. And I want to also say that staff is given on this and allowing 33 may be more than what our zoning allows. And no one has put me up to this, by the way. Like these is just me sitting here doing math. Can we get an option with 6 more units that might close the funding gap?
Maybe we better say some things. This piece of property is very unusual. Where it's located.
Yes.
And everything, and including the cemeteries around it and all kinds of things. It's not just like, you're looking at 5 acres of flat.
Understood.
Out
But
in the
it's a
nowhere.
reasonable question, I think, as the owner of the property, and we don't have to go take out a loan for this money. We just go to the kitty, the city kitty down here with all the money in it, and we get to say, oh yeah, that's great. But 6 more units, if we're acting as an owner, we're going to try to find a way to get 6 more units. And I think we should do that I think we should at least, I feel like at least I'm going to push a little bit, and maybe there is a way. And, if
And
there's
what do we
not,
do about our parking requirements? Do we lessen that nuisance?
well, what do we
level?
do when every other owner comes up and asks for
I'm just
some-
saying 6
I'm
buildings.
just saying, we
Yeah.
need to, the math is the math.
That's a very good point. There's a couple points I've heard, and that's why, we wanted to prompt you to think about this and perhaps come back with questions. To Alderman Peterson's point, we have not forgotten that the Water Management Department and city had a treatment facility up there, and there's stuff underground. And as you put infrastructure in, it is unusual. We hope we don't run into too many problems, but it's unknown until you start excavating. To Alderman Vegas there, your math is pretty good because you looked at the 6 units, and added, the cost of that, but you didn't add what it would cost to build them at $200 a square foot. So yes, you're bridging the gap a little bit, but not the full amount, or not even half the amount. The third point is that as we build a community, and I've said this multiple times, it's a community of choice because we're very intentional and thoughtful about what we do. And it's incumbent upon us to respect the vision that we've set forth in the development regulations. Yes, we can change that. We can look at how we incorporate for sale owner-occupied affordable housing. And this helps us start to realize the challenges that we face in building a whole community that allows our employees, other workers in our community, and as we heard from Michael a couple weeks ago in the citizen survey, housing is the #1 quality of life issue in our community. And how we get housing of all price points, particularly at this level, is really challenging.
One comment, I wanted to ask a question while everybody else was deciding, but, the mix of workforce units and affordable units, I'd be curious how you came up with that mix 23 and 10. I know I've always said that the Housing Authority is doing a great job on affordable housing, and I've always said the biggest need we have is workforce housing. So help me understand how you came up with the 23 and the 10, and why not just build 33 $375,000 houses and put workers in them, period?
If I'm correct, the RFP called for a mix of affordable and workforce. And, correct. Okay, so I believe we went back to something from the RFP with the original numbers, and then as we kind of thought we could build this many, and it's kind of changed as we've gotten into the project, we kind of just kept the proportions. So I don't know.
How would that change the math? That's a great point.
Well, I mean, the pricing. I mean, if we go with more affordable at a lesser price, then our gap is going to grow. We'll have
The opposite. I think he's saying all workforce.
All workforce.
Well, then.
Same thing.
Well, when you do that, then we're going to miss, the target we've been trying to do was get that target between 80% to 150%. If you leave it at all at the workforce, then you're going to leave that 80% or 90% behind again. So what we're trying to do is trying to, and we've talked about it. I really feel that we'll be able to increase that bottom number, maybe up to 12 or 13 maybe. But again, our goal was trying to reach that 80% to 150%.
Got you.
And
I
that's
understand
kind of,
that. And this doesn't solve our housing needs, but it's a start. And I think we're all frustrated that we've been talking about this ever since all of us have been on the board and prior to that. And, I think we need to do something. I remember Alderman Bransford once, she shocked us all at a board meeting. She says, I want $1 million for housing. Boom. And nobody knew she was going to say that, and I think we ended up giving some money, but not the $1 million she wanted. So I think this is an opportunity for us to try to move some of this forward and continue to build our community. I've got Alderman Berger, or you
Go
want
ahead.
Vice Mayor to go since
Sure.
he's got that title?
No,
Lady
because he's
title.
first. That's right.
What happens to the million that we put in on a budget basis if it's not all used? It doesn't carry over, does it?
In terms of if we have $1 million in the general
Yeah.
fund, it just goes to your cash, your fund balance, and then you can reappropriate it in the next year.
So basically, we might not be giving $1 million each year, right?
No, we're not. We don't have
We don't.
$1 million in the current budget. We have, I think, around 150,000 is what we've had as just a general amount of seed money. Now, you've got some other capacity that you could probably draw on if there was a specific project or opportunity that came your way.
And I do remind the committee and anybody else, when we first looked at this, the Hill property, without the restrictions on it of affordable workforce housing, the value of it was probably $2 million plus. So when we put the restrictions on it, it dropped down to 1.3. Now that then $480,000 of that then was the portion that should go to wastewater. Now, I'm shocked about a lot of things, but I'm shocked about this, that, we're looking at $5 million plus whatever the land cost is also to do what we're looking here, and we're getting 33 units out of it. I don't want to be misunderstood here, but I said when we looked at this back several years ago, months ago, that we would be better off if we did not have but one partner into this. Do you remember any of that? Okay. And I said, put the one partner, that's all we need. What we have managed to do is dilute or convolute or whatever this to make it so difficult. And you want 10 of this and 12 of this and 15 of something else then. And I don't know this time, I'm not in a position to say whether it's a time to change or not. But I would tell you, this is, these numbers are astronomical. And that's not even what it costs to build them. That's what it costs to get to a point of building. And I'm glad we're looking at this with an opportunity to, besides some of these numbers, and come back and look at it again then. Because that, for me, to give the property away, which was basically $1.7 million if you take the appraised value without the restrictions on it, plus the 600,000 or so that we're putting in for the infrastructure, the CDBG funds, plus we would have put $1 million in to cover some of the cost. Then you had the water taps, which they're in Vernon's bank. They're somewhere in there. I'm not sure. He keeps a pretty tight key on that box that has the water taps in it. So I'm going to be looking at this again, but those numbers are astronomical to get 33 units out of it, which should be affordable. It should be affordable to the city as well as to the person that wants to buy those.
$400,000 a unit.
Yeah.
I want us to kind of move along pretty quickly because I want us to get to the next item if we could, so.
I just have a
And we'll
question.
bring this back again.
Yeah, I just have a real quick question. When Grant Park was built over there on McEwen, I'm trying to think, I think it was 9 acres. I think it was 9 acres. 51 residents on that. In this development, I don't see any big houses what they call big houses in our planning department. We have some over in Turning Wheel Lane, east of I-65. They look like a big house. You walk in the front door, and there's a unit here, a set of stairs goes up, unit here, 4 units per house. I didn't see any of that here. I thought that's what we were going to be looking at originally, because you get more units in something like that. Now, are these one-stories, big houses?
No, there's 2.
There's 2, I don't see.
That says 2-story.
It says 2-story on those.
Yeah, why couldn't that be?
They're so, why couldn't both of them be? Yeah, I see it now, yeah. So there's 1-story, 1-story, 2 stories, 2-story. Why couldn't they be both 2 stories? You get some more units there. I just thought we would get more units in, I know it's a tough piece of property, but honestly, I'm with Patrick on this. I think we had to look at a way to put a few more units in here, especially if there's 2 of them that are, it's only 2 of them that are 1 story. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's topography or something, I don't know.
So they would be more like condos, right?
I guess.
Fourplexes.
Yeah, 4plexes.
So,
I mean, they worked pretty well. I'm not big on the design, what they threw over there on, it was when we didn't have as much control in our planning, but they can be done even better, I think. I mean, they're okay, they're fine.
Could be ugly.
I'm not saying, there's just different criteria today in our planning department. I think they could have been done better, and the placement even could have been done better, but they got quite a few over there. And then Grant Park, 51 on 9 acres, could have been 10 acres, I'm not sure. But anyway, just want to throw that out there to think about.
Go ahead.
I would offer, if you agree, that this is the type of feedback that we're looking for. And our obligation and our charge with the LLC, and Greg, as you noticed, is working with them too. We're all aligned to try to create this opportunity in the housing. And we'll go back and we'll look at that and see what that means. And if we need to come back and ask for some modifications to our development regulations, well, you'll see those. Those, again, are your decision to make. But at least you understand where we're at today. And so let us go back, discuss what you've shared with us, all very valid. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please bring them to our attention, my attention, and we'll respond to them.
Can you go back and take a look at Turning Mill Lane? Go ahead and take a look at those. And then take a look and walk the property at Grant Park and see how those were positioned. They were positioned pretty tight, but it's done well. And I would just ask you to go look at both of those.
Could we
It may help,
also,
it may not help, I don't know.
wait, could we also
Doesn't
say
hurt.
though,
Doesn't hurt.
go drive by that again and look and see, it's up on the top of a little mountain
Yeah, it's-
there.
Access
So
is
it-
the
And that's the.
challenge.
You still have access. If you didn't have good, you have to have access, or you wouldn't be building there in the first place.
All right,
So,
let's,
but anyway.
let's move on to the next item if we
Okay.
could, and we'll bring this back, and you've gotten some good
Keep working
feedback.
on it. Yep.
Item 11 is 50% schematic designs for the new city hall on the historic public square.
Not for long.
So one of the things we did in working through and evaluating this site as our new city hall, as an option for our new city hall site, the board approved us going through 50% schematic design. So that part has been completed. And so we want to give you a report of where that is and the 50% design, what that looks like and where we are in that process. There is a specific resolution on your voting meeting tonight that would put on the table authorizing us to complete schematic design. But the purpose of this discussion is to inform you what the work you approved, taking it to 50% produced. And so both our staff team and our architect partner is here to walk through that. So
Good.
take it away.
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. And before I turn it over to Anna Ruth to share the 50% design of the schematic design phase, I do want to acknowledge that Matt Taylor from Studio 8 Design and Gary Seebach from OHM Advisors are our consulting partner on this, and they're both present this evening. I also want to recognize and very appreciative for the support I personally receive on this project from Kelly and Joe, and Jamie is here as well, and Brad is in here this evening, but they do some marvelous work in helping us make sure we're making the right decisions to this point. Back in April of 2022, you may remember you approved a PSA amendment, professional services agreement, for us to move into the schematic design, which covers all 100% of it for about $1.6 million. We're at the 50% stage because in the fall we said we wouldn't go beyond the 50% stage until you gave us further direction, and we've had multiple discussions to get us to this point. The resolution that's on the board agenda this evening does provide, as Eric said, the authority to move through the schematic design phase to the end, which gets us towards the end of the year, maybe right after the first of the year. There are two very important pieces of that resolution that include us hiring a third party to help us value engineer. It's just not staff or the consultant. It would be somebody, a third party, your representative perhaps, that ensures we're doing the right thing during the remaining schematic design and the construction design. The other piece that is included in that resolution is that we would provide for two, not one, but two independent cost estimates when we get to the schematic design and share with you that work, completed work, and before we seek your approval to move into the construction drawings. Most importantly, that with your approval of that resolution for us to proceed, we're going to come back to you almost immediately to seek your guidance on the retail and the architecture. That is essential to completing the schematic design and staying on schedule. And so kind of think of that, and as we move through even more into value engineering, we're going to seek your guidance along the way as well on multiple aspects of what we're trying to develop on this historic corner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna Ruth. She'll share, provide a broad overview of this 50% schematic design and hopefully have a little time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. Like Vernon said, it's not working. Technical difficulties, one moment. Okay. I'm going to give a very high-level overview of what we've accomplished in 50% schematic design. On this slide, you'll see a list of deliverables that are part of the 50% schematic design documents. We have a 30-plus page set of architectural, landscape, and civil drawings, mechanical, electrical, structural, plumbing narratives inclusive of schematic systems plans, a smart building, audio-visual, and broadcasting narrative, lighting design conceptual plans, an acoustical survey and report with acoustical recommendations for the building design, updated lead scorecard with lead boundary and open space site exhibit, commissioning review and report on the 50% schematic design documents. The security consultant reviewed the documents and made recommendations. And then, as you know, we have an opinion of probable cost with an initial list of potential value engineering items. So on the following slides, I'm going to give a brief review of where we are to date with the development of the plans. We have continued to work on the technical coordination of structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and security design in the parking level and throughout the rest of the building. The subgrade level provides parking below the building as well as the foundation for the floors above. Under slab drainage has been specified for the design of the subgrade parking garage slab in accordance with the recommendations of the geotechnical report. Our team worked closely with the city team to further evaluate wants versus needs, to incorporate core spaces within the footprint established in Phase 1 without increasing the building square footage any further. Examples of some of the core elements that were coordinated across all floors during 50% schematic design are electrical, sprinkler, pump, and telecom rooms, utility entrance points into the building, mechanical shaft locations coordinated with the rooftop unit locations, and coordination on security and access control. The 3D aerial views on this slide help illustrate the building massing that was established in the master plan visioning phase. The building massing is based on the relationship with its historic surroundings, with the 3-story portion of the building closer to the square and in line with the courthouse across Third. Then there's a break in the building, which is that courtyard that aligns with the pedestrian connector behind the courthouse. And then the building steps down to 2 stories further down Third Avenue to relate to the residential character further down Third Avenue South. The park on the corner of Church and Third provides a transitional open space for the community between the more residential scale and the 2-story portion of the City Hall. During 50% schematic design, we presented an initial concept for the exterior of the City Hall to BOMA and to DRC. Based on the feedback we received, we developed 4 concept sketch studies and individually polled aldermen and commissioners for the aesthetic preferences. After BOMA gives direction on whether retail should be included in the project, we will come back to BOMA and DRC to review the feedback we received on the 4 concepts of the public square and Third Avenue South elevations. As Vernon mentioned, the board's direction on the inclusion of retail is needed prior to proceeding further with the architectural design because the type of use inside the building typically informs the character and style of an exterior facade. We look forward to the opportunity to further refine the plans to help us take a step closer towards this landmark building that will serve the citizens of Franklin for many decades to come. So with that, we just want to open it up with questions, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Wow. I'd like to know the board's ideas on the retail, because that's an important question to ask, and that's one of the things holding them up, so.
Sure, I'll start. I think that, given the idea that we're gonna have that park environment, when you say retail, I'm thinking, we talk more about restaurants and opportunities for that. To me, I think that supports people wanting to come that way. So I would support retail if it includes dining options, not as much like going and buying a hat that says Franklin.
And what we've discussed in prior meetings is 2 to 3 smaller restaurants or
Sure.
coffee shops, because the competition helps.
Well,
with
yeah,
that.
and I think it's great for staff to have options. I think also it will draw people down further to enjoy the open space opportunity.
Alderman Brown, we'll just go down the line if we could.
This has been the part that I've been a little bit more on the fence on. It didn't seem to add a tremendous amount of benefit to the project that we thought that it was going to add. As a Main Street business myself, I literally watch turnover of these stores over here in between the square and Second Avenue. And despite, the Harpeth and trying to draw more down that way, we still just see turnover. And my fear is this tucked around retail on the backside of this down Third Avenue towards residents. I feel like we're just going to see that same turnover, and now we're going to be the landlords for that turnover, and or whoever's going to manage it. But and so I just don't see this really huge win coming from this inclusion of retail here. I'm not opposed to it. I could support it, but I'll be candid. I think it's going to be a really hard thing to make work. It just seems out of the way, hidden, and not of great value to the project overall.
Agree to disagree, Alderman Brown, but I think it's essential that we program that corner, and the way that you all have designed the retail spaces, it can be converted to office in the future. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Construction once is, and the costs today, although we have high costs just in general, I think getting that done, I think you won't see any more construction on the City Hall site for a very, very, very long time. I think leaving that corner empty, there will be pressure to do something there. There could be pressure on another board to sell the property at some point because of its value. I think going ahead and establishing long-term permanence to that area, and I think it'll be an amenity to the neighborhood. It is a little bit out of the way, but most of the shops, we have the study from the Gibbs Group that was pretty amazing. Now, would I want it, if we didn't have all the other constraints, do I think it could be spread out over the first floor? Yeah, but I understand why you didn't do that. I mean, but I think this would activate that corner. I think that will be one of the most popular places in downtown Franklin when it's completed, to be honest with you, because it's quiet and set apart, and I think it'll be very popular for residents as well, because you may not have as many tourists, which we love them, but we may be a little. I think that may be more of a neighborhood kind of place and feel than really Main Street. But also would. Last comment, I would like the BOMA representative, I think I discussed this with the city administrator, but in the resolution, I don't know if we amend it or not, but have a board of mayor and alderman representative work with you to select.
We can just do that.
You just do it?
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. To select the owner's rep.
Have a representative from the board involved in that selection process.
Thank you.
Alderman Berger.
Patrick, you sound like you're in marketing. Because I believe that done right, that site's going to pull people in. It's exactly what you said. It is a quieter space. I don't look at it as retail at all. I look at it as more commercial, restaurants, something where our employees can just grab a sandwich right here on site. A lot of places will go in that will be a coffee shop, will be something in the morning. You can grab a bite to eat in the morning. You might do lunch. They may never be open at night, or they may switch and have the flexibility to be breakfast and lunch, and then it opens up as a wine bar in the evening or whatever, something for the evening crowd. But something quiet. You don't want to have anything loud. You don't want music there. You don't want those things there. You want something very quiet. So also, it never has to stay there forever. I mean, if City Hall needs it eventually, we can eventually use it in the future. It doesn't say that because today it's commercial or a restaurant, doesn't mean in 20 years it's still the same. It could be changed by future needs. And if it does well, then it does well in its own regard. The other thing is, it does program that corner and give that access. I would have liked to have seen it come up further for access more on Third Avenue, a little bit further up. But the site can definitely pull you in if it's done well. And I think it will. I'm with you. I think it will be one of the most popular places around. And I think it will be accessed by not only people who work at City Hall, but also people visiting City Hall and people coming here between meetings as well. So anyway, I'm definitely for retail on that site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Alderman Brown initially with my concerns about retail activation on that end. Limited parking is going to be in the back, small business turnover. I'm concerned, I do have concerns about as we watch other businesses come and go inside our downtown area. Now, with that said, I do think that if we are moving forward with this, that there is the opportunity, if it's activated correctly, this will be a targeted destination by those that live in the adjacent areas of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, those individuals that are active that want to walk a couple of blocks and come down here and have a bite to eat, have a cup of coffee. If it's converted AM to PM into a wine bar, things like that. Long term, I think that there is the opportunity, and this is what I'm seeing is as the city continues to grow, this allows us to convert some of that into office space if we need to. I can even see later down the road if we needed to have a visitor center adjacent in one of those office areas. I think that's a great opportunity. If there's some type of city-county partnership that really helps to drive our Convention and Visitors Bureau opportunities, I think that could be there as well. So I think that there's a balance here of public-private. I would like to see it activated, but I am concerned about where we're headed with the economy right now and the turnover that happens right now in a lot of these smaller businesses.
Alderman Hanson.
All right, let me make a statement about the turnover in the smaller businesses because I have a waiting list because there has been zero turnover in any of these retail restaurant spaces in many years. And if it is, it's going for top dollar and there is a waiting list on these spaces. The areas you're talking about, we phase out our zoning from the Main Street zoning into a different zoning. And our zoning is not good under Envision Franklin in those other areas. And it is a struggle because the uses are so limited. Literally, we were told chickens in a garden would have been good on one of them after they spent almost $1.5 million on a rebuild. That's our problem is the zoning outside this Main Street zoning. So for Main Street zoning, there is no turnover and there is a wait list. And we do need small retail, small restaurant in that space. And I would really prefer even if we had to put it at the back end, but along 3rd Street, because we do need to activate the sidewalk. We do need to activate that walkway, and I do think it will be a benefit to not only tourism, but people that are here working during the day and all of our residents that live in the downtown area as well.
Thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Well, I have a lot of things. I did not get the idea that this particular site was a completely done deal. I mean, maybe everybody else did except me.
No.
But I really have a lot of concerns with this here. I'm very much concerned about trying to put the parking underneath. If we were talking about that without doing the underground parking, and that would save, $9 million right there just about. Actually, in looking at this schematic here, I thought, and I had said something about another parking garage. I swear the back part of this is bigger than our other parking garage here. I mean, the space is. So and parking is a problem here. But as I say, I am very much concerned that we never looked at the possibilities of some other locations. I had people say things to me, that I didn't bring up, say to me they thought it would be better somewhere else.
It's in your ballpark, Vice Mayor.
I think most of you know where my position has been, not necessarily by against City Hall being here, but we've never vetted any other place properly. We took the county appraisal's value for the HG Hills property, tried to plug that in. We've done a very poor job of, let me back a minute. We've done a really good job of throwing up enough of a smoke screen and whatever to focus to put it here without any other options. And we've been dealing with this for 2 or 3 years now. It's very disappointing. I can't imagine that the taxpayer, the average person, looks at this right here, if they look at it, and sees the necessity for a $99 million building on this location. I just don't see that. If you, and I was sitting there listening to Gabrielle's comments, the thing that would bring tourism here, the thing that will make this property more alive, is not a city hall with a coffee shop on one side of it that, if it opens up to city hall hours, would be open from 8 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoon, not on Saturday or Sunday. So I just don't see that. I would like to know, and we've never gone down the line. We've never said whether we are locked in on this location or not. What we've done is we leave and we get a memo, and it reads as if this location is solidly in the bank. It's not solidly in my bank because I don't think it's the right location. It may not be the wrong location, but we haven't looked at anything other than this and give it just a halfway brush look at, or a stroke or whatever, to find out whether we need to do something differently. Last month, or last meeting, I think Eric said something about 99 million, plus we could use the 3 something other for the county appraisal of the property, plus there was $4 or $5 million worth of site work. Well, what that did was make it $107 million up there and 99 here. But what he didn't do was take the $10 or $12 billion off for the underground garage, which is probably 9 with the inflation. $2.5 million to relocate the employees for 3 years or better. So that project up there would be $12 million less than what it would be here, because you don't have to build an underground garage. You also don't have to relocate employees for 2 to 3 years. 2 won't get it, 3 probably will. And put that $2.5 million into it. So so it turns out to be that if it goes up there, just roughly speaking, and I understand we can't move the building because the door facing one way or something else, one way or the other. I find that on a $99 million building that we can't look at and be able to fit what we've got here onto that location up there. You've got the police department up there. You've got this building that could go. And my vision of what it will happen in Franklin in 20 or 25 years is not that entire Columbia Avenue project up through there on the left side, southbound. That's all going to be developed, because that's abandoned, for the lack of a better term. There's 2 or 3 filling stations, Handy Hardware, parking lot there. I guess there's a bank now that's been built, but those things are ripe for development. That is where some of the developers are going. If you want to do something for downtown, if you want to enhance the tourism, if you want to make this an area that people will come to, I don't think you're going to come to City Hall to buy a yard sale permit at $5 or $10, whatever it is now. I don't do a yard sale. So, you know, we're, in my opinion, we're off the base on this right here. And again, I'll repeat to you, not necessarily does that mean that this is not the right location. It could be. But I will tell you this, for anybody that wants to listen, when you start out at 32 million and you get 99 in a couple of years, you have gone a long ways to get from 32 to 99 million. And we did that 32 million in 2019. And also remember how we got to the number of level of points that we got to. And the comments that I hear are people who don't know what's going to happen here if we don't do a city hall. We own the property. Nobody's going to be able to come down here and do anything that the city does not want. The people who are sitting up on this board right here, whether it's any of the 8 of us, the ones that are elected by the city, by the voters, they're going to be the ones to decide this. This is a way overkill on a city hall that does not need to be 92 or 3,000 square feet, and it does not need to be $99 million. And it's not through. Well, we're not. It'll be more than that by the time you get through with all this. So, you know, I would like to know whether or not if it's a done deal. I'm going to be quiet about that. I'm going to go into something else.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As far as retail on my side, I'm kind of wishy-washy on it. You know, our main business is providing services to the citizens of Franklin and housing our employees that are here. I could live with it if that's what the board decides, but it's not one of my top priorities. You know, I've been pretty opinionated about the new city hall being at this particular site, and I have looked at the analysis that was given to us, and I'm not sure what else needs to be presented to us. I'm concerned about the continued delay. I'm concerned that we end up at the same place again. We went through this with the police station as far as looking at a green field to build a police station, and we decided that where it is where it should be after doing all that analysis. I personally am ready to move forward. I'm probably a lot more attached to it since I've been kind of living it a long time, and I live very close to it. So that's my thing, and I don't think we have any more time unless there's something that you want us to address,
Well,
Anna Ruth.
I think there was,
Not at this time. We'll come back.
I think there
after
was
the
one
direction.
thing said. I think there was one thing said that I think we should clear up. That I did think at one of the meetings, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the 2 meetings before, that you did ask for direction, Eric, about us and what we were saying. And I heard us saying, well, we're pretty well moving forward with this site. Now, was it a vote? No, we didn't take a vote, but it was at a work session. And I think we all sort of had a lot of information. Now, did we have complete information? No, Clyde, you're right. We didn't have complete information. If we want complete information and we want to vet every site, settle back in your chairs. We're going to be here another 2 years. I will tell you, we will be here another 2 years making that decision. It's not going to be taken lightly. And if you want to properly vet it to the nth degree, then it's just going to take a long time. And I'm not willing to do that. I think I've had enough information myself, and I think a lot of us have said that. So, and I think we will definitely regret if we do not do that underground parking. And I think the people in the future will say, boy, they were short-sighted. Because, you know, things change, and it doesn't always have to remain the complete city hall. Well, what if things change so drastically in 25 years that we only need half the space? Guess what? City Hall will shrink to half the space, and this other part of City Hall will be revamped and utilized. It will not sit still. It would not be underutilized. And something else that I just have to say this. We want to make sure that this, and Clyde, I love you. I'm not picking on you, but it's just, I have to say this. We want to make this area where people will come. Well, people already come here. And they've been coming here a long, long time. They've come here, especially come here since our first streetscape. City Hall was here a long time before streetscape. And it's been here a long time. And if we moved off-site, I think that one of the other problems and things that we will face as a board is that this site could remain open for a long time. Now, trust me, I think people will scamper to say, wow, what a great site, we want to buy it. But it's not going to be easily done because this board is going to be saying we have to be very careful if we vacate this place, what actually goes here. And it could be open for years because I'm not sure how this board and the citizens ever agree in the end, really what goes here. Because everybody and their brother, it's like, I like purple, I like pink, I like yellow. It will be, I'll settle back in, it's going to be years because that's how things work. I've been in marketing for a long time. I've done market research. I've done market research on developments in Alabama and Virginia and Louisiana and different places and in Chicago. And I've seen a lot of this stuff and I know how that works. But at the same time, this is Franklin. We have a responsibility. And as we sit here every single time, the clock ticks. The dollar signs go up. They're never going to go down unless our whole economy crashes and then we all start over again. And that does happen once in a while. For me, I think we really do need to move ahead. There's going to be obvious things that we don't like. Some of us don't like. Some things I don't like. Some things you all don't like. But I think we've got to, bake the cake or get out of the kitchen. And those are my comments. Thank you.
We're adjourned.